Namaskaram and welcome to Indic Academy to Himakiran ji. Thank you so much for joining us.
Vanakkam. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. We would like to feature you. We have a section on change makers. So we would like to feature you as a change maker who has, worked in several areas, both in culture as well as in rural and indigenous economies and local traditions, their preservation. So, how could you tell us
Right.
how you started your journey, Himakiran? You live and cover a very beautiful part of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, something that's a region that's really very close to my heart, right from the southern part of Andhra Pradesh to right up to Kadalur and of course Tiruvannamala, Kanchipuram belt. So, how did
Yes.
you come to this land?
See, my native is a village called Komakambedu, just outside of Chennai. It's in Thiruvallur district. We've been there. We not in this. We've been in this village for about 120 years, and
Hmm.
previously we were in a village which is nearby. So roughly 200 odd years in that area, and then probably another 200 years before that we probably migrated from like Chittoor
Andhra
district.
Pradesh. Hmm.
Yeah, so and again, it's all oral history passed down in the families. So we used to be jaggery traders in Chittoor, and then we did after we settled in this particular area, we were into indigo, cultivation and making the dye and selling it. Then when the indigo market crashed because of synthetic indigo, and I mean, this coincides with the time when there were a lot of peasant movements for indigo farmers protesting against the British policies of basically exploitation, right? And we moved to paddy predominantly, and cultivation, production, and supplying to traders. So that's the background. And my mother's from East Godavari district, and she's a more recent migrant to this part of the country,
Okay.
about 70 years ago. And we've been farming forever. Like we always farmed, and my dad went to presidency college and went back to farming. And I studied in Chennai, went to the US, came back, and didn't get back into farming or anything related till about 13, 14 years ago.
So,
I
do you?
used to run. Sorry.
Sorry. Please continue. Yeah, please continue, sir.
Yeah, so I used to run a web design IT animation company, a video game company studio, and I also had some interest in t-shirt manufacturing in Tirupur. And 2011, I actually did a video game and sold it to Sprite for the 2011 World Cup campaign. And after that, I decided to take a break and like a sabbatical of. I mean, it was I won't say unplanned, but it was not a finite saying 1 year, 6 months. So I just said, okay, fine, let's travel a bit, and that's when I started researching about agriculture in terms of what people are doing outside of my native area. What happens in my native area, I very well know. It's mostly paddy. We used to do sugar cane, but we stopped about 2 decades ago. And then, typical problems of farming like labor issues, water issues, price issues. So, I mean, as somebody who does cropping with a lot of paddy, we know no matter how much we produce, we don't make great incomes. But I wanted to see what's out there in terms of crop diversity, farming systems, and economic models. So I spent a year traveling on and off, not continuously. So whenever I found out about somebody in some part of Tamil Nadu saying they're doing something interesting, so what essentially happened was I found only I mean, I found only one group of people who were optimistic about farming, or
Mm,
like rural India as such, and there was organic farmers. Everybody else was either out of farming or on the way out, or were very sure that their future generations won't be in farming. So cultivate till we can, and then maybe sell the land or migrate, and again, migration has always been part of history. But this forced migration, right? You don't even know why you're migrating. You've been doing something profitably for a long time in a particular location, in a particular occupation, and suddenly global economic forces, which you don't really understand from that context, force you to take these decisions. So the previous generation didn't know why. I mean, they knew that there was a problem, but they didn't know what caused it. But as far as I am concerned, my travels along with my exposure to global economies, I've run an IT company, and I've been part of the global economy, the industrialized economy, and I very much understand it. So I said there's a lot of stuff that needs to be uh, compared, and then so then I realized most of rural India farming farmers whatever are caught in a very socialist model of control regulations, whereas others in the cities and in the industrial economy are part of a more free market capitalistic model. I mean, the choice between the two models is again up to the people and the government, but you cannot have both operating in the same country, right? It always will lead to a big gap in wealth and income distribution, and we've seen that, like over the last 30 years, that's the gap is widening. Again, this is all macro level, but then at the ground level, I started interacting with a lot of people, started working on issues. Then I became part of the Senapati Cattle Research Foundation in Western Tamil Nadu. So it is one of the preeminent institutions for research in native livestock of a particular breed called Kangaim breed. And then that's when I started realizing that, obviously what we considered as native cattle, I mean, we just call them cattle, right? Like Natu Madu in Tamil, or Nati,
Yeah.
something. I mean, we didn't really have the need to define and give labels to anything, right? It was just part and parcel of your social, cultural, and economic landscape. Then I started realizing, okay, there are so many breeds, and then some of them are registered, and this is what happens. Like there is a biocultural element attached to each breed, the region that and the people.
Yeah.
So we started getting interested in the Jallikattu issue. So we just said we'll go take a look at what's happening, and then we realized what's wrong. I mean, like I'm from coming from a rural context. You look at it and you don't think what can be the problem for this. I mean, what it's a open and shut case of saying there's no problem in this. But then when you start researching, then you start realizing that people, like a lot of things in India, people who have no say about, who have nothing to do with the issue, end up having a big say without understanding. And the only
Yeah.
reason that happens is because of the socio-economic position, right, where they are placed, and of course, fluency in English helps. So whatever I said so far, if I said in Tamil, the perception will be different. That sadly is the state even today. Right? I mean, even us subconsciously we've been trained to think English is knowledge. It's a very good language. It's a very useful language, but I can never come up with a poem in English, right? Because I can never emote in English. So at the native languages, native, and then you extend it into food, the culture, the festivals, livestock. All of this, is tied to the land. So we started looking at it from the angle other than tradition. So tradition was the only angle that people were trying to support, or like save the sport. Were looking at saying this is our tradition, we won't give it up. But again, it's a unitary argument. So we started looking at it from a social angle, economic angle, cultural angle, biocultural angle. And when I say biocultural, it's part of the Convention of Biological Diversity, which India is a signatory in 1992 when they had the world, I think the environmental conference in Rio. And then we
mm,
passed up National Biodiversity Act in 2002. That's part of our commitments to that, to being a signatory to the declaration.
mm,
So, as part of the act, it specifically says that any activity involving humans and animals happening in a particular region for a long period
mm,
of time has to be protected. There is no case of you need to like look at it, revive. It says it's an open and shut thing. If it is happening for a
mm,
long time, the particular breed and particular group of people in a particular area, it has to be protected because it's a biocultural heritage. And sadly, we all tend to think we are the most modern, more intelligent of people who've lived so far, right?
mm,
That's a bane of modernity. You think we're more intelligent than anybody who's ever walked this earth. It's not like that, right? Every generation will have its thought process of right and wrong, pros and cons, and arrive at a consensus in saying, okay, this is the balance we have to maintain for it to continue. So I'm sure people opposed this 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. Obviously, it's not written, but there would have
mm,
been debates.
mm,
And typically in rural India, debate is the foremost form of discussion, right? And people get
mm,
together and sit and debate, right? And there's somebody, of course, there's somebody who's like an elder or the chieftain who will adjudicate.
mm,
But then the debate,
mm,
everybody is allowed to participate. It is the representation is much more democratic than the urban or judicial setting that
mm,
we have now. Right? So again,
mm,
not going to too much of that social element. So we said, okay, we start working it, and then we said we'll start documenting things. So we did a 5-year campaign from
mm,
2012 till 2017, and what we said was, we said, okay, we'll look at the information, present it to people, let people decide.
mm,
So we took it to everybody across the world, especially anybody who's Tamil or allied to Tamil from Tamil Nadu. They started initially questioning us, why are you supporting something that's barbaric
right.
or
Mm,
cruel and all of that. But then again,
mm,
so the argument that we had was not that it is not barbaric. It's saying, how do you define barbaric?
mm,
So I don't have to defend something as not being barbaric, right? If the definition of itself, barbaric itself, is questioned. So again, it's a
mm,
cultural I know better, white man's burden type of approach a lot of people take, right? So, and in fact, the sad part is 100 years ago, there's a Britisher who did he did extensive research on the castes and tribes of South India. It's a book.
mm,
It's like a 7-volume book by Edgar Thurston, and in that he has written about the sport in the Madurai context, and he clearly mentioned the people might get hurt, but the animals never get hurt.
mm,
So that is
mm,
it's been so as part of the campaign, we did a lot of groundwork, signature campaigns, and getting into media, debating online. And also, I wrote a lengthy article in the Wire explaining about everything, like how
yes.
cattle are treated, how it's been part of our, it's from Indus Valley, we have a connection and things like that. So this kind of what happened. Of course, the world knows what happened. A lot of people came supported, and then the law was changed, and just a year ago or 2 years ago, it was finally ratified by the Supreme Court, saying
Mm,
because there was a lot of appeals against the law that the Tamil Nadu government passed in 2017. But beyond that, this basically it's a question of nativity, right? How do you define native intelligence?
yes.
Is global versus local? English versus Tamil or English
Mm,
versus Hindi, whatever, right? In the
mm,
context, all of these questions, essentially, the problem is getting into a binary trap.
mm,
If I'm for this, then you're against this, right? And like I said, again, parallelly, I was started getting involved in the organic farming movement. Started working against genetically modified seeds, a lot of stuff, right? our argument is very simple: consult with the people, whatever the issue is. If all the farmers in India say we will cultivate genetically modified seeds, I am nobody to go stop them. But creating a situation where they are forced to choose something without understanding and then having to pay for the consequences of the decision. With data we've shown, I mean, there's enough data. So everything that we work on, we look at the stakeholders, their perspectives, the track record of the particular seed or technology or whatever, and then we basically bridge the gap between rural and urban, because we understand rural, we understand urban, local, global, whatever. So that's what we do. So coming back to the binary element, so we get trapped in this: are you a capitalist? Are you a communist? Are you a socialist? I said I'm right. How they're all ideological theories which came forth 175, 80 years ago. We've been at it for 10,000 years easily, right? So our approach to money is very different. I mean, in North, or like in Sanskrit, they say kama artha moksha something, right?
Yeah.
Dharma artha kama moksha.
Purushartha.
Yeah, right. And then in Tamil, there's a saying that says "Thirai kadal odiyum thiraviyam thedu." So, "Thirai kadal odiyum thiraviyam thedu" essentially means go seek wealth across the world. So that and the same ethos will also talk about giving away wealth. And like, so this is, how do you define, I mean, how do we define all these belief systems based on John Adams or Milton Keynes or Karl Marx or Engels, right? So the problem is that, I mean, what the West has to offer, there's a lot of good. Nobody's denying that. But throwing out everything that's native and saying we have to be like that, essentially is what it's causing is people who are not rooted. When you're not rooted, where do you get your moral compass from? Economic compass, right? It is fed to you, saying this is right, this is wrong, right? If you're rooted, you have a reference point from your own family, your community, your village, your region. When the village does a festival, everybody's involved, right? So there's a bunch of social norms saying you have to do this, you have to do that, right? So just throwing away all of this, and then what? We build a mall in the village. So the point is very simple. Look at cultures across the world. Go to the Middle East, right? I mean, they are global. I mean, they have like so much wealth. I mean, and their entire economy is based on global. But they do have their cultural like heritage, and they protect it. For example, every Arab will love falconeering. So they'll raise falcons, and that's their pride, and they'll have camel races and stuff like that. I mean, the question is, oh, do you ride a Ferrari? Why do you have this?
Sorry, one. So sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, not a problem. So
Just
again,
if I can interrupt,
yeah,
just yesterday, see,
can I just
somebody
take one?
shared.
Can I
Sure.
can I can I just take a phone call? Somebody's calling repeatedly.
Sure. See, yeah, I just wanted to ask
Yeah.
you, but yesterday somebody shared a post where they're talking about Murugan, and they say the very dominant deity of Tamil Nadu, and they're asking whether he's a tribal god who is beyond Hinduism. So they were talking about Kartike Nakshatram is more important than Shashti Titi, and Kaumaram is distinct from Hinduism and Shaivism, and they say Valli is the only wife of Murugan, and Devyani, they don't, refer to her at all. And traditional offerings are fresh goat's blood, honey, and foxtail millet. So when we have these kind of assertions, how would you at the ground level, how do you manage, a very local tribal assertion versus some, other trads who will assert a Vedic heritage. Is there a conflict even within our tradition?
Yes, see, the best part about our tradition is conflict,
Yeah,
right? I
that's
mean, if you look at
true.
Tamil art forms, Pattimandram is one of the foremost. Pattimandram is essentially debate. See, the problem comes in insecurity, right? So when somebody says, so typically, Kaumaram, like, the Kurunji Tinai, the mountainous landscape, and all that has references in Sangam literature. And in fact, at the event that we are doing, we are going to be showing like the Tinais and something like that. But
Yeah.
again, there is interpretation. And somebody who says Murugan is a Tamil god and from the Kurunji landscape, and Balli is the tribal girl that he wooed and married, and all of that. Even that is based on some oral traditions, some recollected memory, handed down memory, plus some references to literature, right? Probably Sangam era literature. And when somebody says, Kartikeya and it's, Valli Devani and son of Parvati and Shiva, right? That comes from references to some books, some, let's say, some stone inscriptions. See, essentially, nobody knows the antecedents of anything. That's the reality. But if one person says this is the only thing, then it becomes a problem, right? And there's enough diversity in this land to accommodate everything. So for example, if I go to like a hill area, and then I see like the worship, the same god is worshipped in a completely different form. There's animal sacrifice, and there's like, basically the Tinay based worship. But at the same time, the same god in a much more commercial, larger city type environment, with a lot of infrastructure built in for the temple. It's a completely different worship, right? Of course, this conflict of which is right, wrong. End of the day, the victor writes the history, right? The problem is not that people don't really bother about all of this. 95% of the people I know don't bother about all of this. So depending on the context, depending on their own family traditions or local traditions, they will follow something. For example, in my village, our clan deity is Muniswaran, and the clan deity of my relatives in a neighboring village is Bala Muniswaran. In my village, the clan deity of the majority population community is Bala Muniswaran. I belonging to this particular community in my village will have animal sacrifice when the kids are the torturing is done and all of that. There's animal sacrifice. We give alcohol, we give tobacco. That's the offering to the god. The majority community in my village does not do that. My relatives who are from my community but from a different village, they don't do it. So what is the practice of this community? Is it giving meat or not? We don't know. My family, my clan has been following this in this village. But at the same, what is the practice of this village, giving meat or not? We don't know. So this is a good example of saying, so the same god in the same geographical context is worshipped in different ways, and people are okay with it. The people, the majority community in my village, the population wise, they don't come and tell us don't give goat animal sacrifice, and we don't tell them why are you not doing it. When we sacrifice, they'll come and eat. It's not a big deal, right? So the point is, this is a small example in a village of 1,500 people in one of the 650 lakh villages of India, right? Imagine the permutation combination across India. So the problem comes, appreciating diversity is one thing. Partaking in it. So most of the people who have problems with all of this, do not partake in any of these traditions,
Yeah.
right? So it's easy to get into a debate saying no. And I myself do that. So when there's forceful arguments on one side, I go defend the other side, right? So because I know it is nothing is hard and set in stone, and in fact, whatever is set in stone is also by the sculptor, right? It's his or her perception, right? And the problem arises in political economic control, right? So political economic control tied to religion, then things get into a bigger problem, and then overall the tradition gets affected. So when there's a community, it says this is our tradition, and if it's different from what someone else follows, let it be, right? So unless we do that, what do we rather have? Do we have this, or do we have like a very decent deracinated population which cannot think in native languages, cannot think in native, right? So this is the battle we are all facing, saying if you think this tradition, culture, heritage is valuable, and then you have an alternate option saying none of this is valuable. I mean, none of this is needed. Forget being valuable. It is not needed. So this is like how do I say? You're somewhere in the middle, right? You're trying to say, okay, we need modern, we need global thinking, economic progress, and all of that. But at the same time, at what cost?
Okay.
So, and then most of these traditions that I've seen across Tamil Nadu or India, whenever I travel, have a huge economic, environmental sense about them. Like how much can you extract, how much can you cut, how much can you consume. Everything is defined by these traditions. Seasonality of things. So there are some things that we'll never eat if it's out of season, right? I mean, it might be cultivated, but because my body my doesn't ask me to eat it, because I have a much more of a traditional understanding in food
Yeah.
and things like that. But now, if you don't have this understanding, what happens is you will end up consuming whatever, and then the production systems get affected. So the market wants mangoes in November. Somebody will come up with the technology and say it's great, but over a 10-15 year period, the technology fails. So, and then we are given a new technology saying, try this now. So, I mean, my perspective is very simple. If somebody calls to me a Murugan festival and there's no meat served, I'm okay with it. If somebody calls to Murugan festival and says there's meat served, I'm okay with it.
Good.
As long as they're calling me and getting free.
Yeah.
So people who pass spend time on the ground, and their perspective will be very much different from theoretical ideological arguments that we find online and all of that.
So, what is
We
their
have reached.
role? What is their role? Should you should advocacy be an important part of communicating what work you are doing to the rest of India and to people who are also doing similar work, or is it just enough for you? Even the area you have selected itself is so large. So, is your focus the impact on the land that you have chosen, or would you also like your work to be, in fact, impactful on regions outside this chosen area, this Thondai?
uh, yeah. So the visual thinking would be I'll be able to go do this everywhere, right? But again, we are limited by a lot of factors. Time being the foremost of that. See, the thing is, these are all models. So I'll give you an example from our paddy thing. So my base is around Chennai, right? So Tiruvallur district, and then we will get information about a new variety from Nellore. They will get it from like Vijayawada. They will get it from Vizag. We have a network that goes up to Bengal. This is a traditional network that do the trade, and we have, so for our sewing we've got workers from 24 Parganas district in Bengal. So what essentially I'm saying is this connectivity, right? This is exchange of information has always been happening. So whatever I am doing can be replicated by somebody in Bangalore, right? I might be able to understand it 30, 40, maybe 60% because of the cultural
Hmm.
similarities. When I go to Hyderabad, it'll probably become 50%. If I go
Hmm.
to Delhi, it'll probably be 30%. So if there's somebody in Delhi who's saying, I want to do something similar, I'll be happy to collaborate. We'll be happy to collaborate. So essentially, if I go there and I say, this is how you do it, it's never going to be accepted. So empowering the local is what we need to do. Saying what I come with a certain level of understanding, knowledge, experience. You have something local understanding, knowledge, experience. Let's put the two together and see what emerges. So that
So
is the
in a
way that I would do.
in
So I do get a lot of people. In fact,
you
last year I was called to Bihar to attend there's somebody from IIT who's gone back and he wants to do something, and they're already doing like they want to like create livelihood options for people. Like basically see what can be done with what the soil gives. And I couldn't go, but for me it's like I wanted to go thinking when will I ever get this chance to go to rural Bihar. I mean, a region which is much how denounced and neglected too, right? But again, work. So what we are trying to do is saying, it's like an open source thing, right? Saying, you do come, take a look at what we
sure.
are doing, and you want to replicate it there, fine. As far as the farming, food related work, so I say wherever you are present, you're producing something organic, I can help you sell. Because being from Tamil Nadu, being from Chennai, being much more part of the global economy, we have better advantages compared to a lot of other people in other parts of India. Just the diaspora itself is so huge and well earning, and we are able to see like we are able to go to any like country. We are able to find people who will work with us who want to promote our products and stuff. So that can be like a platform for anybody. Somebody in Murshidabad wants to sell organic lychee, and they're not able to sell locally. And if I talk to them, I'll say, okay, fine, send it over. I'll sell for you. Similarly, knowledge wise, again, so the region I come from, Tiruvannamalai, Tirupati to Tiruvannamalai, soil, weather, monsoon, rainfall, livestock, food, festivals, they are different, right? So what works for me in my village might not work for somebody 50 kilometers away, 100 kilometers away. It has to be tweaked. It might completely not work 300 kilometers away. But when we do our work with farmers, we say, this is my experience from my context. And I've also traveled to different places. This is pretty much what I've seen working. So 30-40% is what we tell people. The 60-70% is what they figure out after doing things.
So when I went to Wayanad last year, they were talking about people giving up farming because of the nuisance of whatever monkeys or boars, wild boars. I think so many varieties of rice used to be grown now because of this menace. Many farmers have stopped growing these varieties of rice. So is there any peculiar problem like this that you have faced? What are the unique challenges of your region?
See here, I mean, my region is very how do I say it? High levels of urbanization because of Chennai, obviously, Chennai and the Vellore and things like that. But beyond that, a lot of people want to be part of the urban global economic model. I mean, we cannot say no. The biggest problem comes in decentralization of policy making. So, what works best for my village block cannot be told accurately by anybody at the collector level or the Chennai state level or Delhi level, right? It's very hard. But lack of planning, and again, we are following the British bureaucratic system. So we had a district and we had a bill collector. Like a collector decides everything, right? So that itself is something that needs to be looked at. So when we say Panchayati Raj, the first question that comes is so it's going to be community control. So community can be caste or community can be a group of castes. Again, stakeholder means the same thing, right? In my village there are like maybe 3, 4 castes. So these 3, 4 castes are the stakeholders. The people of these castes are the stakeholders. So the decision making of anything that impacts this village has to be consulted with them. I'm not saying leave it to them, but when you operate top down and there's a lot of power accumulating at the top, it becomes convenient for you to not change the system, right? And you don't really look at the data and saying how many people are benefiting, they are not benefiting. That doesn't happen. For us, wild boar is a big problem because I'll tell you why. Tirupati Hills, they used to have a lot of tribals who used to do non-timber forest produce, right? NTFP, that's it's called, like siakai, honey, and stuff. They used to bring us a bark which is like not an antidote, but something that delayed the spread of snake venom. So every year they'll come, they'll take some barter system essentially. They'll come, they'll take some like rice pulses or whatever that they need from the villages, and in exchange they'll give us all these barks. I remember us seeing that bark, and every house used to have it. So if a snake bit you, you're supposed to like chew and swallow the juices, and they'll give you like half hour, 1 hour time for you to be taken to a place where you can be treated. That was the now control of the forest is no longer with them, so they no longer do this. And when they no longer do this, they have to migrate, and they are not capable of doing the work that we do. Essentially, they're tribal civilization. We are agricultural. We are not the same. And that's the biggest injustice that we have in the tribal community. It is entirely different. It is almost like two different planets. That is how it is, right? So they come, they get lost, they try to do some work, whatever. A lot of exploitation happens. But what happens to the landscape? There is no prey. The food pyramid over there is disturbed because there are no people living there hunting wild boar, hunting all these animals. The population expands. There is not enough food available for these animals in the forest. They come outside, and they spread across, and where possible they survive, right? So the thing is, animal welfare people will be like, you cannot kill them. But we've had people being killed by boars, right? So the problem is neither the tribals who are from that region nor the villages around were consulted in any of these policies. Then what happens is, second thing, why am I not cultivating varieties which are traditional and all of that, right? I created a market for the traditional varieties through our network, and I cultivate some of them. But if there's no market, then I have to cultivate whatever the market wants, right? So if you look at nutrition, any rice which is red in color will have high amounts of iron content. So you have problems of anemia. Uh, Women during pregnancy, they require a lot of iron. That particular rice was traditionally given for that purpose. So if you have a data on like a block level data saying there is a nutrition deficiency in this particular block, then you actually have a rice variety which can be cultivated there. It will be locally consumed, and also farmer will get a premium. So the challenge is unless we start thinking at a village or like a union as in like 10, 12 villages, we can't really solve any of these problems. And 90% of the data, or even 100% of the data in India will only be 75, 80% accurate. It's just not possible to get data. So most of these policies are at the start itself, they are 20%, 30%. How do I say it? I mean, the chance of success is lesser because the data itself is wrong. So this is what we are facing.
So, with your skill set, your exposure, your training, would you be able to make kind of a training curriculum and to impart? We do. Do we have any such training system where you can, transfer your knowledge and skills to people who are graduating out of fresh, maybe out of agricultural engineering or because we have one best innovation university in Bangalore, near outskirts of Bangalore and Andhra Pradesh, which is looks at agricultural research and development. So how do
Okay.
we get your kind of knowledge? How do we get
We can
access
see
your
as
kind?
part of our foundation, we have done rural livelihoods training. And I also work with a lot of entrepreneurs on, agri-rural food type businesses. So, and in fact, I'm talking to a bunch of government departments here to see if we can create a program which will be more, how do I say it, which will teach it on a more in a more practical way, like with actual experience in trade and
Mhm.
cultivation and
Mhm.
things like that, rather than say, I mean, this classroom MBA type approach will not work.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
That's
I'll be
true.
happy to engage. So with I've done enough work 15 years, and then I am bound to slow
Mhm.
down after a point of time. So we are creating. So
Mhm.
the festival that we are creating is essentially to bring people together, saying imagine the possibilities, and then we're saying we are going to
Mhm.
create a curriculum based on that, saying if you want to learn this art and or you want to cultivate, you want to do kitchen garden, it's easy to access it, saying everybody's available in the
Mhm.
same place. Yeah.
So, what is the cultural aspect that you address, and what is the like everyone when we talk about culture, they either earlier it was Tanjore, then it is Chennai. Here also it's like Bangalore, but there are so many districts, so many places where culture is thriving in a more natural way rather than an artificial entertainment kind of situation. So, what is your experience?
Correct.
What are the art forms that you have, seen to be neglected on, by the larger cities?
Yeah. So the problem is, it's almost like a human tendency to support something that becomes popular to the point where it actually starts killing everything else.
Mm.
And cricket is a very good example,
Yeah.
right? If we had not won that World Cup 42 years ago, a lot of other sports would have survived. So the problem is, for example, in northern Tamil Nadu Delta, Terukuthu, which is basically street drama, it's very popular. Farmers, they basically practice it. They will once a year during the festival, they are the ones who will actually they are the performers actually. But now it's at a point where there are some troops and trying to survive, and there's hardly any visibility. Again, this is just something that's from my native area, right? When I travel, I see a lot of some such art forms, and the biggest problem I see is people actually are a bit too humble. They don't talk about these things. So when you find out and ask them, yeah, yeah, and they talk about it as if it's nothing great, right? But then it's not going to survive. So if there's one thing we need to learn from the West, it's marketing.
That's true.
And even last year, what we said, we gave complete creative freedom to all the people, saying, I don't want to come and say what will work, right? Because I don't really know. I'm not an artist. As a consumer of the arts, I know what I like. But as a performer, you know what everybody will like. So it is up to you to figure out this is the audience, right? It's got people from all ages, from all cultural, religious background, economic background, people who can only speak think in English, people who don't know English. Everybody's attending the event. So you figure out how to convey it, right? So it's a challenge for them because typically a lot of them told us that we don't get to perform in events like this. We only get called to rural. We only get called to rural festivals. We've never had a chance to come to a big city and perform. We never thought in our life that we'll be doing something like this in the middle of Chennai. Again, geographical barriers are all in on paper, right?
Hmm.
When I go past my Tamil Nadu border into Andhra,
Hmm.
the board says this is welcome to Andhra Pradesh, but mentally both the sides of the border are the same for me. I don't feel like I'm going somewhere else, right? So it used to be like that for cities and villages. There was no mental barrier, right? You enter
Hmm.
the city limits. So 100 years ago, when you cross Adyar River and came into Saidapet, you actually entered Chennai district, the city, and that side, other side was Chengalpet district. But anybody who lived on the other side didn't really think of it that way. They would simply say Pattanam போயிட்டு வரேன். Pattanam is like right? Pattanam
Hmm.
போயிட்டு வரேன், I'm going to the city, right? I'm if you go to like New York, people say I'm going to uptown, I'm going downtown, and things like that. It was a matter of fact. There was no mental barrier saying this is I don't belong here. A lot of that has happened in the last 30 or 40 years. So the idea is to say, give a platform and something that might not work might actually work because the people want variety. People are one. A lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't know something like this was there." And in the Jallikattu contest, this time we're trying to bring a art form. It's from Ramanathapuram district. I have never heard of it. I've never seen it. I've traveled so much time in that area. Apparently, it's a dance form where they actually show you how to catch the bull. And I didn't know about it. But having worked for years on that issue. So that is the problem, right? So problem is people who are interested in livestock never talk about this. Then not a single person ever said, "Oh, enga urla, we have this art form," right? No, right? They should have said because they think I'm only interested in cattle. Like, I mean, I'm not like that. So this festival is basically saying everything has to be in one place,
Improve.
so that there is a lot of what's that term? Interdisciplinary exchange of thought processes and all of that,
Understand.
right? And again, people get ideas, right? People get ideas from other stuff, right? Hey, can you do this? If somebody is performing using a particular costume, a clothing designer might get inspired saying, "I'm going to do something based on that."
Correct.
Yeah.
See, we there's a group called Onnamalu. It is looking at the culinary heritage of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. So we started with Anandpur district, and there we spoke to leather puppeteers who have come from Pune and now now are in
Settle.
Andhra Pradesh. Then weavers, we looked at the weavers, and then the temple prasadam traditions, the food traditions across these districts. And there's so much of variety, which is whereas everyone talks only about, if they talk about Andhra cuisine, they only talk about something in Hyderabad, some biryani, something. But there is so much of variation based on the change of soil and
Yes.
climate, and only those who are living there know about it.
Yeah. So
So.
when I travel, see, there's this type of cucumber which is found south of Madurai. It's small. It is very tasty. I've never had it. So I happened to know about it about 7 8 years ago when I was trying to do some work in that area, and I said, "Why are you not selling in selling? I mean, why are you not sending this to Chennai? We've never seen this, right?" And they said, "Whatever is produced is
Hmm.
consumed in Madurai itself."
Hmm.
So I said, I mean, that's great, but at the same time, you probably will have a market in Chennai or abroad for this because it is so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, Washington apples we consume, right, from state of
Yeah.
Washington, Portland, and all of that from the US.
Hmm.
And where is the HPMC apple stand that we all grew up with in railway stations, right? From Himachal Pradesh, they'll have a kiosk with apple juice, right? The problem is empowerment has to happen and competition has to happen, but local needs to be protected a bit.
Hmm.
Uh, and in terms of food, I've traveled very extensively in Tamil Nadu, and wherever I go,
Hmm.
I get invited to festivals. I get invited. I mean, I've been given like what the local people actually take pride in giving what was local to me because I know they know that I support the local. So they'll actually call and say, "Inga vanga, we'll go eat this here," and all of that. Rather than say for somebody from the city, you may not like like that problem is not there with me, and I we've been we've started talking about food cultures. So I said, you know what, the food culture, you document it, and then look at the recipes, seasonality, and then see what grows best for that region. That should be the advisory given to farmers. And the people so in that region say you should be consuming it like this. Then it becomes easy for the farmer to produce, and the farmer gets a premium rate all through the year. And if why should all of us eat the same tomato? Right? So that is the problem of centralization. So the tomato might grow great in my village and I might make a lot of money, but it may not work in your village at all. Right? So what works in your village,
Yeah.
what works in my village, if it is tied to the local food culture festivals and all of that, you have a good market, I have a good market. And of course, the surplus can always go to the cities.
So, as a maybe a last question, can you tell about your fondest memories in this journey? And there are always the songs that that bring nostalgia. There are the foods that bring nostalgia, connect to the land. Family memories, functions. So what are those? What are the nostalgia triggers for you?
See, whenever I go to Madurai, I feel like I probably lived there in an earlier life.
Hmm.
So my connection with Madurai is 30 years old. I mean, I've been there as a kid, pilgrimage and stuff. But then my friend, a very close friend, is from Madurai. When we joined college, he was. Since then we've known. So I started going to Madurai very often, and he had access. So we used to go to like temples, festivals, and he's from Ramanathapuram district. And and he's also from like a very good, like a reputed family. So there was a lot of access to a lot of things because of him. So whenever I go to Madurai, it's like I feel like I know more people here than even Chennai. And the thing about Madurai is people, if they, I mean, once they, பழகிட்டாங்கன்னா, right? They'll do anything for you. I mean, it's not something that's just said. I've experienced it. I'll give you an example. So we were working in Jallikattu campaign, and there's this curry dosai from Konar Kadai, which is very famous. It's a meat.
Yeah.
It's like a thick dosa with a lot of meat in it. It is very famous and very tasty, and I just love it. Like whenever I go to Madurai, I'll make sure I have it. But we were a couple of us were on an election trip. So we also do that during elections. We go around Tamil Nadu talking to people, talking to candidates, just to see, because I call elections the festival of democracy, right? The way Indians approach elections, it's like almost like a festival, right? And so take a lot of people who hate politics and say, "You come with me, I'll show you what politics really is." So one of those trips, we were driving up from south of Madurai, and we had to reach Madurai. It was going to be like 8:39, and we were staying in the outskirts of Madurai, like in the new bus stand area. But then I had told my friends that we have to have that curry dosa. It will be very good. And I also said if we go into the city now and it'll be crowded, there'll be a lot of people. By the time we go in and park and buy it and come, it'll be like too late, right? And they were a bit disappointed. So then I said, okay, I have to do something. So I just called a friend from Madurai. I said, we are coming to Madurai, but we're not coming into the city. We'll be here. And he said, and like, what do you want? அண்ணே சொல்லுங்கண்ணே என்ன வேணும்? Right? I said, எனக்கு அது வேணும். நீ யாராவது ஆஃபீஸ் ஸ்டாஃப் யாராவது அனுப்பிச்சிட்டு நீ like send us an office staff, right? And he said, and there is an answer is never no. It's like, ஒன்னும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை, right? And then we reached the hotel about 45 minutes later, and a guy walks in. And that guy is a friend of my friend. And I know that guy too. And that guy is not a staff. That guy runs a textile shop. He's a business owner himself. So my friend called that friend and he said, "Anna vandirkaru, nee poi vaangi poi kuduturu." I said, only in Madurai this will happen. And people will not feel like, hey, you made me run on an errand, that because they are friends from school, and I'm friends with this guy. So see, that element of doing things without, just because we know each other, right? That is something very unique about Madurai. I'm sure there's a village in or a city in Bengal that's like this, but from the world that I've seen, I've never
Correct.
experienced something like that. And whenever I go to Madurai, it's the only place where I will not feel like, oh, I'm trying to go home, to leave, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just stay, and most of my trips have always been extended. Like I'll be like, okay, we'll go tomorrow. That happens only with Madurai. So anything related to Madurai is like, I mean, it's my favorite city outside of Chennai.
I mean, it's really
And I
beautiful
was
how
a lot of work.
these. Yeah, I love Madurai. Then I go to Kodangalur in Kerala, and every cultural program there is about Kannagi, because there is a connection between Kannagi and the Kodangalur Bhagavati.
Yeah.
So there is
That's
like
what they
our
say, right?
country is so beautiful.
So that's what they say, right? Kanagi,
It's
after
there.
burning down Madurai, she went up into the hills into Kerala, and there's a temple, I think, in
Yeah,
Kodangalur near Kumuli.
yeah. Her anklet is supposed to have Golusu is supposed to have fallen there.
Uh,
But so lovely speaking to you, and I think once for your festival, definitely we would love to come and visit and experience it
sure.
firsthand. And of course, the sound of our mother tongue or the regional tongue, nothing is equal to that. But because of the limitations of this channel, and largely being an English medium, we I have spoken in English,
No,
but
not a problem. I mean,
definitely the
we have
sound
to,
of.
I mean, like I said, it's a tool to convey what we want to say, right, to the world.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well,
All the
thanks
very
for having
best
me. It
for
was
all your
wonderful.
efforts.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aparna. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.